afternoon session. So executives, speakers, moderators, and all participants, all right, will have enjoyable experience at the 2 restaurants we arranged for you. Yeah, seem like yes. All right, and I'm happy to see that. So now for those who missed our morning program, welcome to the Internationalization of Higher Education platform, Internationalization Policies and Practices for Future Development on IZNHEP Symposium 2018. Our afternoon program consists of 2 sessions. First, from 1 to 2:30, panel presentation and discussion under the topic why future-oriented or internationalization matter, viewpoints from international agencies. And then the second, from 2:30 to 4:45 p.m., session of national level under the topic internationalization policy for level 1 higher education. And please note that due to tight schedule of our guest speakers, the afternoon coffee break will be served individually at your table at about 2:30. Should there be any interruption while our serving agents are performing their duty, we do apologize for any inconveniences caused in this regard. So now let us start with panel presentation and discussion. And I would like to invite over there, Mr. Darren McDermott, Senior Advisor, the Global Impact Institute, Singapore, as our guest moderator for this session. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all had a pleasant lunch. I hope we're not going to be suffering any food comas halfway through the afternoon, but in any case, we're going to try and keep it as interesting as possible for you following the excellent presentations this morning. And that really leads us into an interesting afternoon, and particularly this panel presentation and discussion on why future-oriented internationalization matters. I think we'll all agree that in education, and particularly in international education, the only constant is change, and how we adapt to those changes really defines our success. So this afternoon, I would like to welcome an eclectic panel, a very interesting panel. First of all, Ms. Jihye Hwang, who's Program Specialist at UNESCO Bangkok. If you'd like to take your seat. And next, I'd like to welcome Dr. Georg Verweyen, who's Director of the German Academic Exchange Service, DAAD, in Thailand. Thanks, Georg. And finally, and last but not least, Dr. Chantavit Sujatanond, who's the Center Director of SEAMEO RIHED, or Regional Center for Higher Education and Development. So we'll start off with the 3 presentations. I think in that you will see the organization mandate, their approach to the challenges that we're currently facing, and also what's coming down the line in international education over the coming decades. So I'd like to welcome the first presentation, Ms. Jihye Hwang, Program Specialist from UNESCO Bangkok.
Thank you, Darren. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so sorry. It's so late. It's after lunch. Yeah? Very tired, right? Yes. Hello. My name is Jihye Hwang. I'm a program specialist at UNESCO Bangkok office and also seconded from Korean Ministry of Education. It's my great honor to attend this meeting and have a chance to speak. This is my presentation slide. So I was requested to talk about why future-oriented internationalization matters. And I choose my title as the role of internationalization of higher education to achieve SDGs. And actually my title speaks itself what I'm going to say. But please allow me to elaborate more. Sorry, I was kind of nervous to take a good photo. Yeah, good photo is the most important thing that we can achieve during the meeting. So, as we all know, the world in 21st century is facing diverse global issues that cannot be resolved by one country acting alone. United Nations was created just after the World War II, but that time, just safeguarding peace and then protecting human rights was the initiative goals. But now, we have more complex issues such as climate change, migrations, refugees, which is really hard to solve by one country. It needs collaborative work among nations. So, not even the globalization issue, we also have technical development for the future. I brought some examples that maybe entertain all of us. So let me start with first, because I need to promote my organization's work. Yeah, UNESCO Bangkok is supporting ICT education in Myanmar in rural area as well. As we all know, technology using ICTs is really helpful for better teaching and learning, of course. And second example is really personal things for me. Can you recognize what it is? It's so small, sorry. Ice cream cone, but it is YouTube slide. And it's already, oh, it's so small, like 10,000 people, and 10 million people already watched it. What I wanted to say is that, actually, I have a daughter, only it's 5 years old. She create like Play-Doh crafts without any help. She just bring her Play-Doh here, and then politely ask me, "Mommy, it is okay to use smartphone?" And she just bring it, watching it, and make a beautiful craft. Sometimes I'm just really amazed how this young generation is. They are totally different from us. They are born with the technology, and we are just trying to follow. Sometimes I ask my kids, like, how I can use this one? Please help me to use it. Yes, that's the technology. And also I brought some interesting articles to share. As you can see, Nigerians turn to technology to fight hunger. Like a young female engineer creates some apps to connect grocery store to non-profit organization, and non-profit organization to underprivileged family. So some people who suffer from hunger, they can get cheaper and better food. That is the technology that we have now. And next, can you see his face? Looks much happier because he has hand. Can you see his face, his hand? Sorry, I brought very small photo. It's like, not only he can use his hand better, actually, according to its article, it says the people who approach him, their attitude is different. His life is much better thanks to technology. But we should be aware that technology is a double-edged sword. I'm not sure this article is also appropriate for this big group or not, but I thought it's very interesting. Have you ever heard about the story that, please allow me to read, an intelligent robot offered a truly chilling answer to an interviewer's question, like, will robot take over the world? What is that? Don't worry. Even if I evolve the Terminator, I will keep you warm, keep safe in the people Jew. I will watch you keep warm and safe in my people Jew. It's a really chilling story, right? I think many of you already heard about it. And second, not only UNESCO staff, but as a mother, I'm really worried about cyberbullying things. Before technology, we only need to think about bullying. But now we need to think about cyberbullying as well. What I wanted to say is that technology development is not a goal to achieve, but the tool to achieve the goals. Again, technology development is not a goal to achieve, but a tool to achieve the goals. And we are the one who using this tool. And then now we are thinking, so what is the goal? What is the goal we need to achieve? I hope you all know the answer, because I already showed you the answer. Answer is? Oh, please. SDG? Yes, SDGs. Before dipping more, I want to ask you, what is the sustainable development? Do you know what is sustainable development? Of course, many of you are already familiar with SDGs, but I don't think many of you saying clearly what's the sustainable development. So I'd like to tell you again. So sustainable development means development should meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. You should not steal from the future generation. Maybe we spend too much water. Maybe we spend too much electricity already. It's not sustainable development. Sustainable development is a convergence between the three pillars of economic development, social equity, and environmental protections. So there is our familiar 17 goals. After I started working for UNESCO, I saw these goals actually tie international community to go the same directions. 7 billion people living in small planet. We are suffer from poverty, inequality, climate changes. However, in spite of all the differences, all the challenges, all the nations gather together and they adopt these 17 goals, which I think is really important. So now, let's move on. What the internationalization of higher education can do to achieve the SDGs. Before saying the answer, I want to ask you, what's the role of higher education? Traditionally, actually, it's focusing on individual success and the economic growth. Oh, okay, I'm very high-skilled people. Now I can be very successful. And for the country, their economic can be better. This is a traditional role. But now, in this complex world, this expanded role as a think tank and the platform for collaboration is getting more and more important. Considering in this your mind, let's think about the role of internationalization of higher education. Actually, before this meeting, we UNESCO Bangkok office and University of Tokyo had meetings very related to these topics. And we had some definition from last year saying that internationalization of higher education can be defined as internal expansion, can you see? Yeah, I'm not going to read everything, but what I want to say is, okay. So do you agree? Maybe many of you agree, many of you not very much. Why I'm showing is that actually internationalization of higher education definition of international higher education is getting comprehensive and more comprehensive. But why? It's because I think of technology development and especially ICT and then mass transportation things. Can I ask one question that, is there anyone think I'm the person who is from the farthest country from Thailand? Is there anyone saying, it took me 1 day to come? Or no one wanted to share your story? No? 10 hours? 15 hours? Oh, please, give me a big hand. No, you don't want? Please. If you came to Thailand 1,000 years ago, you could not go back to your country. What I'm saying is that technology development makes the world smaller and smaller, and then it makes the role of higher education, especially as a think tank, as a platform for collaboration, can be more facilitated by generating universal knowledge and promoting innovations. So as a program specialist from UNESCO Bangkok office, I'd like to focus on each of SDGs very briefly. And I'm working on educational area. As we all know, SDG 4 is saying that we need to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And then for the target, 4.3, for the first time, higher education become a goal, a target. 4.3 is focusing on higher education, and 4.4 is skills and skills for the work to work. But how we can support it? How we can support this to achieve this target? Promote internalization of higher education through cross-border mobility programs, and fair qualification recognition can be one of the strategies that we can achieve this goal. I try to share a very good example that how UNESCO support this area. Just last month, we have a very historical meeting in Korea that the first regional committee for Asia Pacific Regional Convention on the Recognition of Qualification in Higher Education. Many people say, what UNESCO do? This is our main mandate. We support country to ratify some conventions that they can help each other, they can promote the collaboration. So this is the main idea is that the article, according to the article, the main idea is that it requires each party to at least access and recognize qualifications issued by other parties unless there is a substantial difference. So far, we have only 5 countries ratified: Australia, China, New Zealand, Japan, and Korea. And we, as a UNESCO staff, I really wanted to ask Thailand and other countries to join this convention and support internationalization of higher education, a fair and transparent recognition of qualification. Oh yeah, and next, as we all know, GCET, Global Citizenship Education, is really linked to internationalization of higher education. And this is our target, 4.7. But how we can support? Yes, international higher education supports developing cross-cultural understanding and tolerance. Can I ask, is there anyone study abroad? I'm sure there's many people study abroad. Yes, thank you so much. How did you feel when you are in other country? I'm sure you feel like, my understanding of culture, other cultures is better and getting better and better. I have better cultural competencies. Like, yes. That's the role of international higher education, I think. And also, education is a central role for to link all the SDGs together. Oh, looks so complex. I'm not going to read it, but I wanted to emphasize that. Can you see the red word? What is the most frequent word it shows? Education. Yes, education linked all the SDGs by raising awareness and search for solution. And it helps higher institutions as a think tank and also platform for collaborations. But I'm so sorry to say that SDGs only last by 2030, right? Like Millennium Goal, it will be replaced some other goals. I do not know which it will be. But the most important thing, the alternative goals for us is building peace in the mind of man and woman. UNESCO is a specialized UN agency for higher education. We have 5 goals. Whenever I have some presentation, I share these goals. And then we are here for you to support internationalization of higher education and for the better future. Thank you very much.
Hello? Okay, there we are. Thank you very much, Jihye. Technology is still a little bit of an issue. It's a double-edged sword, as you said. Yeah. I'd like now to welcome Georg Verweyen. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here on stage, and I'll keep it really simple. I'm representing the German Academic Exchange Service, or DAAD, as some of you might know us. And yeah, in the background you see the University of Bonn, and I studied there for, well, I would say my undergraduates, but back then it was still the German Magister, so it was not really clear where the undergraduate stopped and the postgraduate started. Anyway, at some point I saw that announcement that it was possible to go abroad, and I decided to do so, and somehow Paris was on the list, and so I realized that I might need to learn some French, because I didn't speak any French at that moment. So I enrolled in 2 intensive courses, French, and then took all my courage and make that tick mark. Do you have any knowledge of French? Yes, sure. So they sent me off on an Erasmus year, and well, looking back, I would say that this started my international career, if you want to call it a career, what I'm doing. So I would like to talk about the role of DAAD, and of course about the German higher education and our approach for internationalization, which is pretty different from what we've heard so far. So, well, you're not supposed to read any of those names, right? It's a German map, and in all of those unreadable, illegible cities, everywhere you find universities. So the DAAD is a self-governing organization of German universities. That's our status, and it means that all those decentralized universities in a very federal system have joined forces and are, well, represented by and supported by the German Academic Exchange Service. And that is pretty special, because it makes us the biggest exchange organization for academia worldwide, the biggest scholarship donor. And yeah, well, our mandate is to represent the interests of German universities. So what am I doing here, right? That's an important question. Yeah, why am I not in Germany helping German universities? What do I do in Bangkok? And in fact, our office is here in Bangkok, so I'm based here, kind of permanently. And well, I do realize that this is a big luxury compared to other countries, and I appreciate that fact, and I believe that it is a very clever, a very good investment. So these German universities join their forces, they join the money. It's actually not really big compared to Harvard as just one university, I realized. Yeah, our total budget is peanuts. Anyway, well, we do manage to create some very nice effects with this little money we have, and I think money is an important issue for excellence in higher education and for internationalization. And you may know that the approach in Germany is very different from what you have in the US. So at most universities, you don't pay any tuition fees. So the universities are highly subsidized by German taxpayer. If you look at the student numbers, more than 90% of the universities are public universities. So there are many private universities, but typically they are small. Yeah, so if you look at the student numbers, 90% of the students are at a public university, and those 90% basically don't pay any tuition fees. So how does that work? Yeah, That's the big question. And how do you get anything like excellence in such a setting where everybody receives kind of the same money? And well, you see the map, right? They kind of all look the same. But even though you may know some names, yeah. So well, we've already mentioned Heidelberg. Thanks for that. And well, you maybe know the Technical University of Munich, TUM, and then we've got I think it was the president of Ludwig Maximilians University. So both of those Munich universities are usually very high in the rankings. And it was the president of Ludwig Maximilians University who said a few years ago that actually it doesn't matter at which German university you study. And then the PR department said, hey, come on, you can't say that. How dare you, right? I mean, hey, we are the German university and you say it doesn't matter where you study? Yeah, so well, he had to carefully, well, back up on that position. And but I guess to some extent he was probably right. Yeah. So the German universities have, I believe, a pretty good system of quality assurance, and they are pretty close to each other, especially when it comes to teaching. You might have an excellent prof who is good at didactics and who is a good speaker and who is just, you know, catching his audience, and well, but then you might also have a bad one, and that might happen at any university. Yeah, so if you just look at the overall quality teaching at the universities, well, chances are kind of the same wherever you go. So, yeah, was he right? And what does that mean for such a university landscape? Yeah, we've got universities everywhere. I mean, compare that to Thailand. In Thailand, you have got this one big blob. You could see it from space, right? So Thailand was pretty dark, but Bangkok was really bright. Same goes for universities. So you have 80% of higher education happening in and around Bangkok. And then you have this little spot in Khon Kaen and in Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, and a bit in Hat Yai and Phitsanulok. Have I missed anything very important? I hope not. Yeah. So, oh yeah, Nakhon Si Thammarat. Yes, I've been there. Yes. Sorry, Nakhon Si Thammarat. Next time I put that on the list. So it's very different in the German setting, right? But still, we have this Exzellenz initiative that has already been mentioned, and we try to push more universities to be good, at least in some clusters, you know, to be visible worldwide. So our job in supporting this strange university landscape, and our job in supporting internationalization roughly looks like this. So we have three focus areas where we are busy, and that is the obvious one is probably scholarships for the best. We do give a lot of scholarships, and I've been working for DAAD in different capacities, and after about 6 years working for DAAD, I once met somebody and said, yeah, you know what, it's just too confusing. We have those 200 support programs, 200 different scholarships. And he said, nope, you're wrong. I said, what? Have they stopped anything? No, but you're forgetting the project funding. We've got roughly 400 different programs. So our Secretary General, anyone knows the Neuschwanstein Castle, Schloss Neuschwanstein? Probably. Yeah, the Disney Castle. So our Secretary General compared the DAAD to Schloss Neuschwanstein plus 200 extra towers. Yeah, so just imagine this Disney Castle plus 200 extra little towers, and every one of those little towers represents one of our programs. So it can be a bit confusing. And with those 200 extra towers. Yeah, we try to support all kind of things that can be individual or it can be institutional. But what we try all the time is really to provide the infrastructure for internationalization. So we know that we can support people in going somewhere by offering financial incentives, but that is not going to move anyone. What we have to do is we need to put up the infrastructure, and that is more hidden, less visible in the public, but that is an important part of our work. So we've got this little office in Bangkok, not just to give me an opportunity to stay in Thailand for so long, thank you very much for that, but also to provide information to the Thai public, to Thai universities, that if you are interested in cooperation with Germany, you're welcome anytime, any day of the week between 8:30 and 5 o'clock. Yeah, just, or write me an email, please. Yeah, so we try to be very open to our partner countries, and of course the other way around as well. Whenever a German university says, yeah, we would kind of like to, well, do something with, let's say, tropical medicine, we need some kind of base in Thailand, where could we go? They'll call me, probably in the middle of the night because they forget the time difference, and ask me about this or that university. Yeah, and this ranges from undergraduate or even school leaver who might want to study in Germany up to university president or Office of Higher Education Commission. Yeah, something in between these extremes, and so that is a very broad field to work in. Yeah, so we try to provide the expertise, we try to provide the structures, and we, well, try to make it work by offering at least some money. And well, if we yeah, looking at programs and structures, well, we support the project here within ASEAN to increase student exchange and quality assurance, and cooperate with Campus France and NUFIC and British Council in the EU Share project. I'm sure we'll talk about that. We offer in-country scholarships. I mean, sometimes it's more efficient to send people to a neighboring country. Yeah? If you want to train somebody in tropical medicine, to take the same example again, it's possible to send them to Hamburg, to the Bernhard Nocht Tropeninstitute. It's a very good institute for tropical medicine, but it's highly inefficient to send somebody from Laos to Hamburg. It's much more efficient to send them to Maidon University, to their TropMed center, which is also part of the SEAMEO network. Yeah, so well, we offer scholarships for that, and we try to help building this network. And then there is a hidden agenda, a not so hidden agenda, because one of the issues that we're going to talk about is the why. Yeah, why internationalization? And I always say, you know, if you ask me what's the main benefit of educating people and then sending them back to their home countries, well, after losing 2 world wars and devastating most of Europe twice, it might be a good idea to finally make some friends in the world. And the more people who study in Germany, that might actually reduce the risk of the same people dropping bombs on Germany. So that, I guess that's one of the not so hidden agendas, right? It's difficult to measure money-wise, but it is an incredibly important factor. The more people have been in your country and made friends in a country, it helps in kind of everything. Yeah, I mean, when I come like to this conference or to any university, there will always be somebody who say, yeah, you know what? You've been supporting me like 35 years ago. And I say, yeah, it probably wasn't me, but thank you anyway. And you know, the contacts are so much easier if you have this network. And I think that's one of the very big benefits of having internationalization. And I'll close with this slide where you see some of the numbers. So every year we send about, well, these numbers of students abroad. And what you can see nicely here is that we have a very careful balance of sending students abroad and getting people in. Yeah, so people are always worried about brain drain. You know, you're taking the smartest people of Thailand away, and then they're never going to come back. And in fact, they do come back. They might stay in Germany for a few years, but my experience is that especially Thai people do come back. And we also send the same amount of Germans to Thailand, and many of them will stay in Thailand for a while, but most of them will probably come back, and that is very good. Yeah, so we, I mean, it's a huge benefit if you study abroad and if you get out of your comfort zone and if you're comfortable with being uncomfortable. I mean, I've studied in Paris without speaking properly French, honestly, and studied in the Netherlands, and yeah, it was uncomfortable at some points, and sometimes I'm uncomfortable being in Thailand and not speaking much more than a few words of Thai, I'm sorry. But, well, that's part of the experience, and we all benefit if we make this one-way street of sending people away into a circulation. So that's the take-home message I would like to give you. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Georg. And now if we can welcome Dr. Chantavit for the SEAMEO RIHED experience, please.
Hello. Good afternoon. I hope you are awake now. After a very exciting presentation, the two presentations earlier on. For SEAMEO RIHED, we are regional organization for the ministers of education in Southeast Asia. And we are pretty much like a replica of UNESCO a little bit because we focus on education, science, and culture. However, we confine ourselves to Southeast Asia. So as the same as SEAMEO RIHED, we are part of SEAMEO 25 years ago. However, RIHED was established will be 60 years next year. So we've been an independent organization long before we joined SEAMEO, and has been specializing on higher education, particularly research work at the early years. But now, being part of SEAMEO, we sort of adopt ourselves to the SDG goal established by the United Nations and carried over by UNESCO, and that's spelled out in the member countries, and we do help with the coordinating for the Southeast Asian nations. We also I will not go into details of the key areas that our organization focus on, which is pretty much alignment and development, cooperation, synergy in the region, as well as research and developing information portal for higher education in Southeast Asia. Oh, sorry, I did something wrong. Well, we took up the definition of internationalization from NAFSA. I think many of the universities have been quite, have some involvement with NAFSA, which is North American International Education Association. The focus is pretty much on ensuring graduates to be better prepared as global citizens. That goes along with global citizenship emphasized in the SDG goals. And also being able to work successfully in the global economy, making an effective and meaningful contribution to the society, at their own society and the global society in general, as well as harnessing discovery and innovation to help solve societal challenges both at home and abroad. So I'm presenting here the IZNHEP and in the regular setting that most of us are familiar with. So we have like physical mobility of students, of course. This is pretty much not a highlight, but signature of internationalization as well. Of not just students, but staff and researchers. We have international collaboration activities in various forms. Conference like this is one of them. Also, we have recruitment of international staff as well as students. This is something that we regularly would experience. Program being taught in English or non-local language. Joint degree, double degree program, international ranking, has been mentioned by Jamil earlier on. Internationalization of staff, we train the IRO in our university, and also setting up international relation office, of course, like Thailand at the, 20-some years ago when there was a requirement that every single university need to have a unit on international relations to help the student and staff, and also to link up with university overseas. So this is some regular process that we experience. However, we are being disrupted with digitalization, with ICT, with the AI, with the Internet of Things, and all those new innovation in technology, which Jihye already mentioned quite a bit on the impact of various dimensions of our higher education system. So I will not go into details on this. Let's move on to our future internationalization. This is the highlight of my slide. I just want to call your attention to major core dimension of higher education that internationalization has an impact or influence the university operation, and also the quality of your graduates, quality of the staff, as well as teaching and learning process at the institution. Firstly is the, let me start from the bottom. The curriculum first, curriculum alignment within the country may be being controlled by central agency like Thailand probably would be controlled by the Commission on Higher Education, and also maybe some other country likewise. However, curriculum alignment within the country may be confined to the standard requirement. However, it's also very important to align curriculum of the same study fields among member countries within the region. That's what SEAMEO RIHED has been trying to also being part of facilitator to make this alignment happen. More interdisciplinary projects or programs. So a learning community, for example, the learning communities, the career lab, and something like that. More freedom of choice with degree program, wider ranges of minors, more choices of major or a mix or double major, something that will provide students more flexibility and more exposure to international elements. From curriculum, we also involving our university staff have to do both. You know, that's a big job. Normally, we don't have a big office of full-time researcher. Most of the time is the teaching core, the academic staff are the one doing the research as well. So in this way, technology transfer and commercialization is also part of the research output expected. University business and community cooperation tripartite is also expected from university. So hopefully this will sort of encourage startup, you know, for the new generation, the new graduates. We also look into international regional research collaboration to address global issues, and also use of digital tools to collaborate platform so that knowledge can be shared, research as well as teaching. So teaching and learning rely pretty much on online and open learning platform. MOOCs is coming into play quite a bit. As you will see that in Southeast Asia, we will have national MOOCs like Thailand MOOCs, Malaysia MOOCs, Indonesian MOOCs, and they will be forming ASEAN MOOCs eventually. So this is something that we are seeing happening, and how can we facilitate the collaboration of countries in the region so that they can move forward together, rather than part of us moving ahead and some of them are being left behind. So it's the task of SEAMEO RIHED to be facilitating, bridging such gap between those who are behind and those who've been advancing. And this is more physical in the sense that we promote internationalization at home as much as mobility of students physically, you know, to be present in another country. And hopefully with the inbound student coming into your university will be the main factor creating internationalization at home, along with some other dimension and aspect of delivery that you are doing. And right now, the issue on virtual mobility is being discussed pretty much in Europe. How, especially by Erasmus+, they are trying to initiate this new idea, and you know, cross-continent discussion and dialogue has been going on. How can we really make it happen? You know, how can mobility can be virtual when everything is virtual, when you are sitting in front of the screen and then things go on, you know, virtually, but you are not actually moving. So this is a challenge that we will be trying to find best way to deliver. I will go to an example that SEAMEO RIHED has been doing, trying to bridge the gap across the region, also to provide gateway in terms of strengthening international cooperation within this region. Well, we are aware that individual single country in Southeast Asia do have network with other regions. particularly English-speaking country or other country that do offer study program delivered in English language. However, within the region itself, there is not so much interest for student mobility. So that's why SEAMEO RIHED has been playing a part to strengthen such alignment and development. This slide will show all the activities that we have been highlighting at the moment, but I would like to focus only on this program, AIMS program, Asian International Mobility of Students. We started this in the year 2010 with only 3 countries. 15 universities, and started with 5 study fields. And now, after 8 years, this year is 9 years, we have been able to expand. Well, we do not expand ourselves. It's the request from country who wish to join the program. We are having 9 countries at the moment, including Japan and Korea, and also accumulated number of students being exchanged on a balanced mobility scheme. So if you send one, you have to receive one, and the study field expand from 5 to 10 at this point, and we are now reaching almost 4,000 students in the process of exchange throughout this 9 years. So it's been quite a good example of mobility scheme, which is a bit different from Erasmus. Erasmus has a funding pool and then provide such funding to the university and the student to go on exchange. But in our case, it's cost sharing. So each country come up with their budget to support their student to go to other countries. And likewise, this is being done by all the countries that request to join. So actually, SEAMEO RIHED do not have to handle financial management as such. It's each government are responsible for their own student. So this is a very good way to sustain the project, because each one have their ownership of the scheme, and they work together through facilitation and coordination of SEAMEO RIHED. So this is an example that I would like to share with this meeting, that if collectively you work together, you can do it. And you don't have to imitate each other. You are actually supporting one another, like Jamil has been mentioning about, cooperation and helping each other. So this is an example that would be a good way of developing internationalization. So that's it, my sharing with you, so that we can have more time to discuss on more detail. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chantavit. Great, so now we get into some of the meat of this very large and unwieldy topic. I'd like to thank the panelists for unpacking this from the perspective of their own organizations and also their experience not only in this region but their own countries and regions. I think the 3 words that really come to mind when we talk about this are connectivity, adaptability, but perhaps most importantly, sustainability. And I think there's a question here. We've talked about the why of internationalization. And each institution, each country has their why. Why are we internationalizing? But I think we also need to question what is the why of internationalization into the future? How do we sustain it? Is it sustainable? How do we adapt? I'd like to borrow a phrase from Professor Sacco, where we have perhaps a need for intelligent blending. So I'd be interested to hear from our panelists on how they believe their organizations, and also in a general sense, how we can adapt to keep internationalization to the forefront in delivering value for societies, regions, and the international community.
Frankly speaking, I worked for UNESCO only for a year and a half. But what I learned is that actually this organization is born with internalization. As we all know, I already talked about, after World War II, we had to deal with the world problem together. And then this organization was created. The problem is that I felt that the power of this organization is getting weaker because we lost resources. Some of the countries are left. So I feel very sorry about this. But UNESCO is born to support internalization and support collaboration among the nations. Especially UNESCO Bangkok office is really focusing on your support this region, Asia Pacific region, 46 countries. So I hope my answer is okay to do that. Thank you.
May I follow through with Jihye a bit, because it's like a replica of UNESCO. So, however, our center is pretty much on higher education, maybe a little bit more focused compared to the work of UNESCO Asia Pacific. Follow through with the SDG goals, especially in higher education. We also about global citizenship. So this is something that IZN cannot be avoided. It will be here forever. I don't think it will not be away, because if we have a national boundary where we have our own cultural and national identity, that is okay to keep it and hold on to it. However, as a citizen of the world, that we have to be responsible to so many development of social issues and global issues. I think that working together on multilateral platform is very important, and it's a pity that some powerful country withdrawing from membership of UNESCO and all that. However, I think that we should have our hands together and to be a think tank, so that we can overcome any obstacle. May I cite example of Thailand case in Chiang Rai, where 13 kids were stuck in the cave, and the whole world came together, to overcome such a difficulty and crisis, and we have been able to pull things through that. So I still believe that a global society with global citizenship is the key words for the survival of this world, and that's when IZN is always embedded in every activities that we do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm not going to contradict on that. No, I believe internationalization is extremely important, and what I would like to add maybe is that we have to think about how we set the incentives. I mean, well, you're both representing those transnational organizations. As I'm looking from a kind of national perspective. I think it's important to gather funds and to set those funds available to support internationalization, right? I mean, I'm a big fan of this cross-funding, and it works well in research organization, a research cooperation, and we have about 180 projects between Germany and Thailand alone. But when it comes to mobility, especially of students, everybody is now interested in getting international students. So I think every university has got that on a program. But just a few universities have sending students abroad on their program. I mean, it's a very good example, but it's still the minority, I guess. So as an organization, we do set incentives for universities to send their students abroad. So we've started an initiative 4 years ago, roughly, the Bachelor Plus program, where universities are supported in setting up bachelor programs where 1 year abroad is already part of the program. So you've got 4-year programs where at least 1 year abroad is part of the deal when you enroll to the program. And well, the same goes for all the Erasmus opportunities within Europe and outside of Europe. I mean, I'm very glad that we started this Erasmus Mundus project, and we get very many people from Thailand to Europe through this. I mean, just is it okay to show off for just 20 seconds?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I mean, Germany is, I think, number 6 or 5, depending on where France and Germany are at the moment in receiving students. And most surprisingly, Germany is number 3 worldwide in sending students abroad. So it's China, India, and then it's Germany. So it's not the US, as you might think, or another huge country, but in fact it's Germany on number 3. So we're sending, well, huge numbers of students abroad, and well, trust me, they come back. Yeah, we're not being hurt by that, and it's not hurting us even to receive all the other students and to educate them without tuition fees. From the macroeconomic perspective, it does make sense. Yeah, trust me, somebody has made the maths, and it's really beneficial.
That's something to be really proud of in the current climate. It also raises a question, though, about the war for talent globally, and how countries are increasingly pursuing researchers and people who can raise their capacity and raise the value of their economy. Is there a role in internationalization in addressing this brain drain, and how do we address it more cohesively? Is it getting easier to have bilateral cooperation on something like this, or is it everyone for themselves in some ways?
Yeah, maybe. Well, I think it's well, you should trust your own students, you should trust your own talent, and you should also trust the rest of the worldwide higher education community. I think the idea of educating somebody and then just stick to them, grab them, and keep them is outdated. This is not going to happen. I mean, the higher educated people are, the more mobile they tend to be, and you don't want to keep people stupid just to keep them under control. So if you agree to educate them, then you should also let them move freely. Yeah.
Dr. Chantavit.
May I pursue this issue a little bit further? The world is getting smaller, as Jihye was mentioning, and you can look from space and see the whole world. From Professor Sokko's presentation this morning. So I think that mobility is great because we get to learn from each other. We get to understand one another better. And sometimes it's just give and take. So the issue of brain drain is more of a brain gain, I think. Because when our people like Thai people would go to Germany or to the UK or US. They stay a while. They learn a lot from those places. And when they bring this knowledge back home, it's a gain for the country because that will contribute to better economic development, you know. So I think it's a good exercise that's taking place of mobility. We learn from each other more, and we become friends more, and we can really work together a lot more too. Yes.
I read that Dr. Chantavit's idea too. As a UNESCO staff, I found UNESCO is totally supporting on mobility, of course, as I already showed the example about the convention, Asia-Pacific Convention on recognition of qualifications in higher education. But what I learned also is that the benefit of supporting mobility, actually quality assurance is really important. If we just send students, whatever, how we assure what they learned. So from UNESCO's perspective, sorry, I will let again photo again. So please stop taking photo of me. Whenever sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so what I wanted to add is that, of course, internalization is, we are focusing on mobility, but also quality assurance is very important thing, and then I really want higher education institutions focusing on it. Yeah, and then that's the one UNESCO support.
Excellent points there. Yeah, I think, again, to refer to Professor Sako's perspective from space, educated people are a net gain for the world as a whole. It doesn't really matter where they are or where they're operating. We can't avoid the issue of digital transformation these days. Are we entering a phase now where virtual mobility, as Dr. Chantavit has referred to, is going to supplant physical mobility? Are we looking 20, 30 years hence that people are not necessarily traveling anymore but are engaging digitally rather than physically?
Can we ask for the input from...
I think it would be great, yeah, if certainly, if anyone has a point to make on this. Or we could have an answer from the panel.
If there is no input from the floor at this point, I'm thinking of digital mobility in the sense that the technology connects us, you know. It could be through the internet or the smartphone, or maybe a few years from now, there could be a new equipment coming up. We don't know what's going to come up. And it might even, like, you know, right now we do live, right? We can see face to face on mobile phone. It's like sitting and talking to each other. Maybe in the future, the equipment might be even better, smarter, and make us feel like, you know, we can be discussing even though we are in a different continent. So connectivity will be there in that sense. So virtual mobility could be like conducting classes in Europe, in the US, in Asia, all together at once, at one time. Maybe learning, we can be learning from the same instructor or lecturer or professor, and the students get to connect with each other without really physically moving to another country. That's in terms of knowledge transfer or technology transfer. Culturally wise, maybe still we need to be in the environment where the culture is there, we can touch, you know. So there need to be some balance on that.
So it may be a more blended approach again. A quick question on scholarships. Are there ever going to be virtual mobility scholarships?
Nah, well, Right now, probably not. No, I mean we could have a blended approach there as well. I mean, what we do is that our biggest budget for scholarships is the PhD to Germany, open to any subject, and there we have all kind of different shades. So you can go to Germany for the full 3-4 years. But there are also opportunities like the sandwich scheme, where you stay in your home country and then just go to Germany with a co-supervision, or just the research stay, where you are supervised only in your home country, but do research abroad. And one very interesting approach with a very blended concept there would be, we are now supporting a double PhD program here in Bangkok, at King Mongkut, North Bangkok, together with the University of Hagen in computer science. And Hagen University, for those who know, is the only or the main distance university in Germany. So they are used to doing PhD defense via Skype, probably not really Skype, but video conferencing. So they are now offering that cooperation, and it's possible to, apply for support to, travel back and forth a number of times, and then, get funding for these research days within the PhD framework.
Great. At this point, can we have some questions from the floor, please? We're getting impatient.
Well, I've learned you shouldn't ask, do you have any questions, but what are the questions that you have?
Right. There are clearly some.
Can I add one more? A prepared question. I didn't mention that, but actually SDG 4.B is about scholarship. Countries, please don't, have some scholarship for, especially for undeveloped countries. And I just wanted to mention, yeah.
Show us the money.
Please.
Okay, so I have a question. Actually, we were hearing a lot of disruptions, from the morning. I would like to ask, from your own institution's perspective, what is the biggest disruption that you face, or what do you think you would prepare for the future internationalization?
Can I go first? Yes. As I told you, I have two hats. So I am a program specialist at UNESCO Bangkok office, but also secondary from Korean Ministry of Education. So I think I have some more personal perspective for UNESCO. But as I already said, I think the lack of resources is really a huge problem. I'm proud of saying that Korea actually donated a lot of funds for UNESCO, but what I found is actually the regular budget, the real budget for UNESCO is really decreasing. Frankly speaking, there's no one from UNESCO, right? No. It's like only $70,000 is for higher education for 2 years, for Asia Pacific region. It's really difficult. But of course, we have extra funding outside. Malaysia, Korea, China, we have extra funding, but it's not regular budget, we can use it. So it's a huge problem for us. And and then the human resources too, because if after the organization is decreasing, the talented people is about leaving sometimes. So that's the big problem that we are challenging.
Maybe my question is not so clear. How did you disrupt yourself for the disruptive world? That's my question is really are.
Disruptive. Can I?
Well, okay. Well, I'll try. Well, the biggest disruption for German higher education was probably the incoming group of refugees in 2015, 16, 17, well, you could see that as a threat, but you can also see that as a chance. And so especially German universities tried very hard and are still busy trying to catch that talent and make a further qualification possible. Yeah, so there are lots of programs going on and working on language training and higher education, access to the universities and recognition of degrees and all those questions coming up. So suddenly it was not us asking for people to come to Germany, but it was people who just came. And yeah, now we're dealing with that, and it goes slower than we hoped it would.
It's a very good example of
progressing. Yeah,
it's a very good example of problems not knowing or not respecting borders, and needing joined up solutions. The term disruption is used a lot these days, and we're looking at AI, automation. We had the example of an AI newsreader in China a couple of weeks ago. There's even suggestion that new technologies like blockchain could be used for credit transfer, recognition of qualifications, etc. What is really, to your mind, the new technology or the new development or the advancement that is going to change the game for your organization?
Yeah, I think that ICT and all the new technology is something that is moving so fast that we are not really in good pace with such development. So just to catch up with that is already difficulties, and trying to harmonize countries in the region, that's even harder, because for example, Singapore could be very much in pace with the new development. For the second group like Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, and they are catching up, But for the Greater Mekong sub-region, we need help. Yeah. So trying to deal with all these different group of countries also make it very difficult. And sometimes we find ourselves, for SEAMEO RIHED, we are the disruption itself, because we try to make changes to happen in the region. We try to get all the country to be moving forward at the same pace and in a harmonized way. So we ourselves can be the disruption for the country involved as well.
Well, it's a very good point. I mean, there's internationalization for the sake of internationalization, which isn't a good thing, and technology for the sake of technology. So really we should focus on why we're doing things and what value they have. Any more questions on the floor?
Answer the question before, the destructive things. What I found is, especially Asia-Pacific region, there are too much big gap between the countries. So the convention I mentioned about, like the Tokyo Convention, the supporting the recognition qualification each other. Actually, the Europe has the similar convention. It's very similar, like Lisbon Convention, and it works really well. They work very closely together. But for Asia-Pacific region, we have too much gap, and then really hard to involve all the countries together. So it's very difficult things to follow. But we still really, how can I say, whenever we have meeting, we try to invite everyone, try to engage everyone together, and then support. That's what we do. Thank you.
Is there, with the rapid advancements, is there any sense the gaps are getting smaller because of the ubiquity of the internet and technology and people's access to knowledge and information?
I mean, the big question probably is how to deal with recognition of learning outcomes. I mean, we're all talking about this move from input-based recognition towards outcome, and is there essentially a difference in whether this young programmer learned his skills at the MIT or on YouTube, right? I mean, does it matter whether this MOOC came from an American or from a German university? Does it matter where this bright young guy got his knowledge from? Or is it indeed about his personal qualification? And then who is going to judge that? I mean, can you come up as the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology? Yeah, can you come up and just award a degree, although you've never seen that person just before the final exam? I mean, how do we deal with those questions? I've got no answers. I'm just
So is there
thinking out loud.
is there a challenge to the brick and mortar institution? Are we going to see universities close, disappear?
Well, not yet, I would say. I mean, right now, society still values that you hold a degree from Harvard, right? I mean, no matter what you learn there, but you hold that paper, pen and paper, physically awarded by this brick and mortar institution. That still seems to hold.
I totally agree with Gay's idea. I had a similar question with some other meetings, and I told actually education has two dimensions. You get educated because you want to learn something, but actually you also wanted to get some qualification. It's a signal effect. You need to show something that I'm good at something, because people cannot see you aside. People cannot judge you just like so. What you can show to the people, to the world, is your qualification. So I think university will stay there. If it is not university, it's some kind of institution that gives you some, qualification, unless people can see people's skills with aesthetically.
Certainly hope so. I think it would be a terrible cultural loss if we lost our universities. Any questions? Any further questions from the floor? Or what are your questions, as Georg would rather say? Is this the mid-afternoon slump? We have a question here, please. Can we have a microphone over here, please?
I think from the arrangement, this section is more focused on international organizations' perspective, and then national, and then institutional. So if we go back to 20 or 30 years ago, international organizations may be the only agencies really push or really lead the international cooperations. And think about in mid-70s when learning to be, developed by the UNESCO, and then the learning travel within, those kind of documents or books just so popular, influential. And now, more and more the world becomes flat. And, universities now, they all have their partners, easily to communicate and to exchange. For example, Tsinghua just recently accept the MIT's micro master degree. It's online and short course. It's between the universities or agencies. It's more easier. It's easier to implement these kind of cooperations international. So my question is that, what's the special functions for these international agencies in these worlds with variety of way of working on the internationalization? So these kind of agencies you have to maintain, and is costful, and if other way can work out, what's the special functions for the international organizations?
I love your questions. It's a sad thing for international organization, but I think it's good for the world. We have a better understanding, better collaboration. It's every bilateral, multilateral. I really love it. Well, I think the Internationalization Agency is for setting the goal, because we need goal to go together, talk to each other, and then decide what's the thing that we need to do. That's my answer.
Maybe one brief answer to that as well. It might be easy for the big universities who already have those networks. So I don't think TU Munich and Tsinghua or Harvard or whoever needs any help in connecting. But when it comes to University of Applied Science in Eastern Westphalia, which is a really tiny German Fachhochschule, Yeah? I mean, that's for us at least, that's the second wave, right? The top something universities, they have their networks, and we are still supporting them because we are bundling those funds, so we have to dish them out as well. But the second wave is really that it's not good enough to just connect the top 10, top 20 universities of each country, which is easy. But then the work really starts when one of those small universities of applied science comes up and says, you know, well, we've got a request from some Rajamangala something university in Thailand. What do we do with that? Yeah, so that's where things get interesting. And can you create trust between those partners? Can you match up those two less than top 20 universities?
Very short answer. International organizations do provide platform where every type of university or government is governmental, intergovernmental platform where they come and discuss and work together in terms of come up with a policy that will promote access or increase quality in higher education together, so that the quality becomes sort of equalized within the region. So university-wise, especially the well-known high reputation university, we don't have worry about that. They can do well already by themselves, but we need to look at the mass of the university and also among the countries in the region as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chantavit. And a round of applause for our panelists, please.